Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today, sitting down to talk about Diablo 4. This game has quietly been one of my most anticipated games of 2023. A big thank you to Activision Blizzard for providing the early code for the beta. And for those of you who have pre-ordered the game, you can get into the open beta this weekend. I was really excited to dive into this because I grew up on action RPGs that were all about loot, such as Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance 1 and 2 on PlayStation 2, as well as Champions Return to Arms. These games are still in my collection. I still love them with all my heart. And fun fact, you can actually play Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance 1 and 2 on modern consoles right now if you wish. But that aside, I grew up on these type of games and I was late to the Diablo party. I know many people celebrate Diablo 2 and to a different extent Diablo 3, but for me, I started off my Diablo adventure with 3 and I loved it. I think the game flow for the type of action RPG it is downright perfect, and I love the replayability of it. I've had so much fun with it, and like many out there, sank a ton of hours into it. So with that in mind, having such a, in my opinion, great formula and the mastery of it right there, how do you improve upon that heading into Diablo 4? Well, I want to at least dip my toes in, even though I want to go in as blind as humanly possible, but I just had to see. I had to satisfy my curiosity. So join me as we talk a bit about my time with Diablo 4, and hopefully you kill a couple minutes off that queue clock you're probably waiting for Diablo 4, because my word, I had to wait 2 hours to get in. That was pretty intense. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, if you're new here and you're into game reviews, previews, that type of stuff, consider subscribing. We will have our Redfall preview out very shortly, so keep your eyes peeled. And with that, let's begin with the opening of the game, which really surprised me because one way they've elevated Diablo 4 is its presentation. I was extremely impressed with the focus on narrative here. Now, it's still your top-down camera perspective, but it's not afraid to bring it in, and it's not afraid to do so because the game is low-key a looker. It's actually a very pretty world, and the character models look sharp. There's tons of detail in the environment. This was not something I personally expected. Like many of you out there, I play Diablo because of the loot. I play Diablo because it feels fun, it's satisfying, it's responsive, it's just an enjoyable romp. I don't need a good narrative here, although it is appreciated, and that's one of the areas that I've noticed Diablo 4 is starting to elevate in. That's why I'm able to get my beta impressions out probably quicker than some, because I gotta be honest with y'all, I played this for 2 hours and went, this is incredible. I'm really liking where everything's heading here. I don't need to ruin more for myself by maxing out level 25, all the characters available, and doing the veteran stuff. I just want to go in as blind as possible. Consider me sold. But this was one of those points where I was super impressed with the game. The presentation, the cutscenes, the darkness of the universe, and who Lilith is. All this stuff intrigued me very early on, and I didn't expect that at all. I know there are folks out there who are really into the lore of Diablo. I can't consider myself one of them. But moving into Diablo 4, oh, I'm interested. I am super interested where this narrative is going. And if you play the beta and you see some of those cutscenes, you'll learn for yourself. But I don't want to spoil them for you if you haven't, because it truly did grab hold of me. And I was surprised by that, because when I go into a preview period, whether it's what I did for Redfall or what I did here for Diablo 4, I do try to establish some sense of narrative disconnect, because I don't want to invest myself so much in something that I know is temporary and I won't be able to complete. I think it leads to a more disjointed final playthrough of the game when I sit down to do my review. So I want to keep things as loosey-goose as possible, and so I don't get too attached to the narrative. But that's how good the presentation was here. I don't want to oversell it to you, but it's just something that caught me off guard. So I'm very excited to see where that goes. Now, what I imagine most of you are going to be asking is, okay, well, that's cool. The story may hit or miss for me. What about the gameplay? The main thing we played Diablo 4. So isn't that kind of a play on words? Anyway, point being, one of the big calling cards for this game is it's set in an open world. And does that really work for this game? Well, it does have to establish a bit of a formula now because it is in an open world. You had open areas in, say, Diablo 3 that you could explore, but in Diablo 4, it gets pretty expansive. And you'll find all various activities like events that you can partake in the open world itself, where you'll see other players pull up to you and start helping you out with those events. It's in that shared world nature that I think Diablo 4 kind of thrives, because what I typically would say to someone interested in Diablo is make sure you have a party. But when I'm exploring the world and getting help from other players, it had this cooperative feel that worked really well. And we did see a little bit of that in Diablo Immortal, but I've already shared my thoughts on how I feel about that monetized video game, so I will save it for that video. But point being is I did like the idea of a shared world in Diablo, and here it feels truly realized. But also I mentioned that structure to the open world, and there were a couple of activities I noticed. There are areas called cellars that you'll go into. These are mini horde battles, we'll call them, where just enemies are going to throw themselves at you. It's literally one room. You kill them all. It says cellar complete, and that's it. The more expansive, familiar Diablo formula here are dungeons, and you'll go inside these and be in them for a hot minute. As what is different here is because we're on better technology, you're not going to load in floor 2 of Dark Cavern, floor 3 of Dark Cavern, the abyss of the Dark Cavern. It's all one continuous stretch. And I actually like that a lot because you just, again, what I think Diablo does well is game flow, and this helps elevate that flow. There is no breakup of the action. You're constantly moving towards your objective. There is a loading screen as you go from open world into the dungeon, for example, but it's very quick. In fact, there was one moment I caught myself lacking a bit because I went to go fast travel to a place, and I went to do the ultimate gamer sin that I'm really trying to cut out of my habits, which is, oh, I'll pull out my phone and check real quick what's going on with the world. I gotta check my email real fast. I just remembered, okay. And boom, the game loads in so fast. I lowered my phone and said, okay, Diablo 4, you absolutely have my attention now because I can't even break my focus for a moment. That type of stuff, again, really elevates what I think this series does well, which is game flow. And so I was impressed by that. And keep in mind, I played this on Series X. Not that that is a not powerful console, but this isn't something that I typically experience unless I'm on PC with an SSD and things are loaded really quick. That's just how that goes for at least my PC gaming experience. But yeah, the loading times, or really lack thereof, impressed me big time. Now, if you're going through these dungeons, one of my big complaints is it is a kind of waypoint-driven game. Say you set up a side quest you want to track down. You'll see a little blue marker on the map. That works just fine, right? It's guiding you to where you need to go. You can't rotate the camera or anything like that. It's fixed and it's overhead. So the game does need waypoints, and it doesn't get intrusive in the UI, so you don't have to worry about that too much. But when I'm in dungeons, I would catch myself sometimes running the wrong way, getting a little lost. I thought the first time it was me, then it happened a second time where I ended up going the wrong way. And I do wish when you enter these dungeons, they set some type of marker in them because I think you can lose your way. The good thing about having Diablo 3's loading screens is I would get to the stair set and go, okay, this is the end of this. Now we're going from beginning to end once more. I like the better flow. I think I just need to adjust to it, but I'm curious as I bring this up if those of you who are playing have had the same issue, because for me with Diablo 4, I personally did bump into this a couple of times where I was going the wrong way and had to reroute and go all the way back. And again, it could have been just me not paying full attention, but I'd like to say after it happened twice that it's not fully on me. So I'm curious what you have to say about that. When it comes to the actual progression of the game, it's Diablo. You're going to kill enemies, they're going to spit out loot, and you're going to keep equipping new stuff constantly. Again, that's one of my favorite parts about Diablo. It just has a good loot loop. It just continues to feed you, but it's not complete vomit all the time out of all your enemies, so you're not pausing every 2 seconds. It's frequent enough to switch things out, but again, this is where the disconnect comes in. I wasn't taking that extra minute to inspect the effects and cross-reference it with what I'm currently equipping. I just wanted to keep moving, and so this game does allow that. The UI is snappy. It's very easy to bring things up, change things out, level up your character. That all works perfectly fine in my opinion and doesn't pull you out of the experience at all. Same thing when you're navigating store menus, very snappy, very easy, very much in game, if that makes sense. It's not like there's a loading screen or some big presentation. It just snaps up these menus. Everything about the game, if I were to define Diablo 4 in one word, is snappy. The combat is snappy, the loading screens are snappy, the menus are snappy, and that's what this game needs to be. It just needs to be sharp as a tack, right? It just needs to be constantly letting you go from thing to thing to thing with ease, and it does do that well. Even again, down to just shopping, it does that very well. Now, when you're beating up enemies, not only are they spitting out loot, but you're going to get XP from them, and you can go ahead and level up all different abilities. I already am digging the sorcerer quite a bit because I created more of an aggro build, and what I loved about this game already is I felt the ramifications of my build instantly. Right off the get-go, you choose your basic attack, and it's one of multiple basic attacks. So right away I go, okay, this changes exactly how any sorcerer will play. There's firebolts that you can shoot from afar, but then I chose the more electric basic attack, which functions, I'd say, as a shotgun blast. You have more of a cone to hit them with, but you have to get closer. And obviously, since you're a sorcerer, you're a bit more of a glass cannon. So I was doing a mixture of that and distant spells and creating this, again, glass cannon sorcerer that I was really digging. Now, there's 5 classes available in Diablo 4. 2 of them were not available in the beta, so you could play as the Barbarian Sorcerer and one other being the Rogue, but the Druid as well as the Necromancer were not available in the beta, unfortunately, so we didn't get to try out a lot of the new fun and exciting stuff. I was really curious about the Necromancer, so I found that a bit disappointing, but that's the beauty of Diablo. You're not really tied to one character. You can restart the game and have a blast and build up all these separate files, and I could totally see myself getting lost in this game. The open world works well for me right now. It's not too content jammed. It's not too, oh, go check this out, go check this out. Like, it's not, there's a dungeon around every corner, but it is a plump game from the outside looking in. But that leveling up is working well for me too. Just everything about the flow and the design is working extremely well, and that is a good sign in these early goings. And the best part is I could have kept going. I put a healthy 2 hours in and said, okay, I really want to keep going, because I was already having that just 5 more minutes, just 5 more minutes, just 5 more minutes moment. But then I finally forced myself to close the app and went, okay, we got a dangerous game here. It's gonna be a really good time. I'm so excited about it. Things are working in its favor from presentation to open world. I didn't mess around with things like PvP personally. I'm sure someone else will have more to say on that, but I didn't experiment with that type of stuff. And it doesn't sound, at least right now to me, super interesting. I care more about the PvE content. That's what I want to engage in the most. But the shared world aspects, the snappy menus, the snappy combat, it all was working in my favor. I felt like it was the stars aligning. I was already excited for this game. I already thought they got a winner here. My only concern really walking out of my short 2-hour session was, okay, Diablo 4, you got everything going on here. I know how Activision Blizzard can be at times. Are you going to monetize this? And if so, how? Because what I played as a core video game seems like it doesn't need any monetization. But that's how these companies always shock us. Oh, this doesn't need this at all, and they find a way to slap it on top. I'm hoping there aren't any type of microtransactions. I know that might be asking for a lot, but with Diablo Immortal existing, I'm hoping that's the price we have to pay so that Diablo 4 can be untainted, if you will. Because what they have here is probably a bona fide Game of the Year contender if that short sample size was anything to go by. It's a rich world with lots to do. It's fun, it's responsive, and I did all of this in solo play. The new layers added on top are fantastic, and what's crazy is there is so much more to see, so many more characters to play as. I just had what was one sliver of the overall experience just for the beta. It felt like a very confident product, the way they showed it off, the way they let you do so much and how much you could see. Going up to level 25 is no small deal, especially when you can replay it as other characters. That is no small deal. You could really put some time in Diablo 4, but I wanted to pace myself because I could already feel it. I was losing myself to this game. So this is going to be, I think, a really good one that you should keep your eyes on. And so that's my experience with Diablo 4 during its open beta. A fantastic time. Really excited for the full game. June can't come soon enough. It's going to be a great month for video games in general, but wowee. Whew. Okay. I'm ready. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, let me know your thoughts on Diablo 4. Have you tapped into the open beta? Let me know. If not, was anything I mentioned here in this video exciting to you? Fire away. Other than that, be sure to follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And a big thank you to all the patrons, all the members who continue to support the hell out of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.